There's trouble brewing in the city of Pittsburgh with its star wide receiver, George Pickens. Yeah, there might be a little bit of turmoil, but I think the Steelers are going to be able to get it under wraps. Is George Pickens becoming Antonio Brown? I don't think so. But George Pickens has had some clear frustrations, guys, and it's really come through on the sideline. It's come through on social media, and it's really starting to stir things up in the city of Pittsburgh, and it's starting to become a big issue, and I want to give my 2 cents about it. Welcome back to Mike Drop Sports, everybody. I'm Jason. Thanks for coming through. The Steelers, they have a very complex situation right now. You have Diontae Johnson, who just emerged back from injury, got his first touchdown, really starting to play well and being a very important piece to this offense yet again. And then last year, you drafted a guy in George Pickens, who's probably the best wide receiver in all of the draft, who's really proven that he can be big and do big-time things. And when Diontae Johnson isn't in there, he's Kenny's number one go-to guy. Kenny force feeds him the ball, and things are good. George is getting the ball and being productive and doing things. And you don't see the frustrations. But the minute Diontae came back, and the minute Diontae started doing well, George, I think, kind of lost sight of what's going on here and why things are happening the way they are and why things are unfolding for him the way they are. George Pickens, I think, needs to mature and get a little bit better in that area. And I know things can be frustrating, especially when you have the skill set that he has. And I think, he feels that he should be getting the ball, which he should. And I think the Steelers need to find ways to get him the ball more. But if you're George Pickens, you have to realize now that Diontae Johnson is back, everybody's still treating you as that number one guy. You're still getting those double teams. You're still getting that coverage over the top help from a safety. You're getting all those things that are forcing Kenny Pickett to go elsewhere, which is a big thing. And a young guy like George Pickens, who lacks the maturity that he truly needs, probably doesn't realize that he is contributing more than anybody right now to this offense, considering he's taking up two defenders 99% of the time. And that's where Kenny is able to find people like Diontae Johnson in one-on-one matchups. That's where Kenny is able to get that run game going and audible down into a run. Why? Because George is demanding so much attention. And that is a positive if you're George Pickens, and I think Mike Tomlin has to pull him in. Has to bring him into the office, which he probably already has, and sit down and talk to this guy and tell him, George, you're contributing more than you know, and you don't even realize it. And it's probably very frustrating. We get it, George. But you got to remember that you are the number one right now, and teams are treating you like the number one, in which I think they should, because I think George Pickens can torch you. I think he can take over a complete game. He can win games. George is that type of guy. His talent level is phenomenal. But do I think that there's a real problem in Pittsburgh? I don't. I don't think Mike Tomlin's going to allow it to get to like an Antonio Brown type level. I think George Pickens lashing out on social media, taking everything down that was involved with the Steelers, all his pictures, every reference, unfollowing Mike Tomlin and Kenny Pickett. I don't think that that's really a big concern. What is it, guys? It's typical. What does a teenager do? What do kids do nowadays? They do those kinds of things. They get mad at a friend. What do? They take all their stuff down. They act like they don't know them. They unfollow them. And what's that do? For these kids, it hurts them. It kills them. It's their way of getting back at people. It's their way of interacting with each other in a way that they want to prove a point. That's how they prove their point. It's not like a generation previous to where you had to speak with people, talk to people, and voice your concerns. You don't have to do that now. A simple unfollow on social media gets your point across that, hey, I'm pissed off at you. Hey, I don't like the way things are going. But it's a very childish and immature thing to do, especially if you're an NFL football player and your name is George Pickens, and I think you need to step up your game in the maturity level. And I think if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you need to figure out how to reel that in and reel it in real quick and explain to him that he's about to be a young guy that's going to have a lot of money. A young guy that's going to have a lot of eyes watching him. A guy that he needs to be in control of himself and really take care of business inside that building and stop acting like a child. Because he's going to end up imploding his own career. Because the Steelers will trade your ass in a minute. They really will. They won't put up with it for too long. They might put up with it for a little bit, and they'll try to help you, and they'll really try to bring you back into reality. But the Steelers will trade you and not think twice about it, and they don't care if you're the best player on the team. They will not. But let's all face the facts. If he's mad at Kenny Pickett isn't going anywhere, at least not until after next season, I would say. I think the Steelers give him a solid 3 years to develop and really get a hold of what he needs to do. But I think if you're George Pickens, you could be gone as early as the end of the year. They won't put up with it very long. They won't tolerate that kind of behavior because it brings bad attention to this team. It really makes things bad for the whole organization, and especially Mike Tomlin having to answer questions about it. A young quarterback that's trying to develop, having to answer questions about that. That could be very detrimental to the whole process. And when you're a Steelers team that's sitting at 5-3 right now, holding a 2-0 division record, you don't got time to deal with those types of things. So you need to reel it in quick. So guys, let's wrap this up a little bit here. And I just wanted to talk about that. Is George Pickens really a problem right now? I don't believe so. I think he threw his temper tantrum like a little child. I think he needs to get his maturity level up. And I think Mike Tomlin needs to reel him in. Do I think it could become an issue later on down the road? Absolutely, I do. But I think the Steelers are the type of the organization that would just get rid of that problem and make it go away and bring in the next guy because they're able to draft wide receivers for some reason. And they still have a guy in Deontay Johnson who's a premier guy who can really play. Is he George Pickens? Absolutely not. But he has his own skill set that brings him to the limelight, that brings him into that number one category on a football team. You really have players like that still on the roster if George Pickens were to go. But if you're George Pickens, you need to realize, and I think it's what Antonio Brown didn't realize, that you're with an organization that is in front and center of the American public in terms of the NFL, in terms of a quality franchise. And if you want to make your money and you want to have a quality career, staying with a team like the Steelers can get you that. And I think you need to realize that if you're George Pickens and really start to curb your behavior a little bit and start to reel yourself in and start to make things work, especially with your quarterback. Now he came back onto social media, put some pictures back up of him, Kenny, highlights, things of that nature. So maybe Mike did get to him and got the point across, and maybe things are just getting reset for George Pickens in a way that he just really was, trying to get himself clear and dump everything. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I have no clue. I've seen some other videos talking about it, saying that, maybe he just needed a reset. That's why he deleted everything. But that's kind of an immature thing. It really is. And if you wanted a reset and that's what your plan was, maybe you should have put that on there. Hey, I'm resetting, man. I'm getting my head straight. I'm getting ready for this second half of the season. I'm getting ready to push. And all these old highlights, all these old pictures don't matter anymore because I'm singularly focused on the road ahead of me. Maybe that's what they need to do. Maybe they need to teach these young guys that kind of stuff, to say those types of things and communicate what you really, really mean. All right, guys, let's wrap this up again. Sorry, we're going on our soapbox. We're going on our rant, but we're talking George Pickens. We're talking Steelers. We're talking Kenny Pickett, Mike Tomlin. What's not to like about that and what's not to really get going and fired up about it. So, again, guys, thanks for watching Mike Drop Sports. I'm Jason. Thanks for coming through the channel. I appreciate it. If you haven't already, hit that red subscribe button. Until next time, peace.